John Adams' Letters from the Front podcast for November and December 1916. This podcast looks at life in World War I through the letters of John Adams, who was 23 when he joined up in September 1914. He served with the 9th Service Battalion, Royal Irish Fusiliers, and was involved in many significant events on the Western Front, particularly Passchendaele. These are his words, read by his grandchildren, and narrated by his great-grandchildren. You may have noticed the podcast is a bit later this month. In fact, it's into December instead of November. That's because from now on we're going to be releasing the podcast at the beginning of a month instead of the end of the month. And this is just to help me in my preparation for the podcast. You will still get the letters, the history, and the comments. It will be at the beginning of each month instead of the end. Also in November 1916, John Adams was down in Tipperary at the first depot in Ireland for wounded soldiers in the post-hospital stage of recovery, and we find out a little bit of background there in the history section. My name is Mark Adams, and John Adams is my grandfather.
In November 1916, John Adams was sent for convalescence to Tipperary. He seemed to have stayed there until January 1917, when he is posted back to Newtownards. From the start of the war, Tipperary was the headquarters of the 16th Irish Division, who were trained here before being dispatched to the Western Front, much the same as Newtownards and Seaford were used for the 36th Ulster Division. On the 6th of January 1916, it was decided that Tipperary would be the site for the first depot in Ireland for wounded soldiers in post-hospital stages of recovery. It was initially able to accommodate 4,000 individuals with workshops, stables, accommodation blocks, cookhouse, chapel stores and rifle ranges available to the recovering men. Frustratingly, today there are very few surviving records of the military hospital, with no administration records or information of patients who passed through. In September 1940, most British soldiers' service records were destroyed by the German bombing of London, with those records that survived being badly damaged and incomplete. As John is convalescing, events keep moving in the war. While still remaining neutral, the United States of America narrowly re-elects Woodrow Wilson as their president. This would lead to America entering the war earlier next year. After 141 days and 1.3 million dead on both sides, the British offensive ends on the Somme on November the 18th, with only 6 miles advanced. On the 21st, Emperor Franz Joseph, ruler of Austria-Hungary, dies after a 68-year reign. His successor Karl will be the last Habsburg emperor. On December the 7th, David Lloyd George takes over as British Prime Minister after Herbert Asquith is ousted amid demands for stronger wartime leadership. On December the 13th, General Joseph Joffre, French army chief from the beginning of the war, is replaced by General Robert Nivelle, commander of successful counterattacks against the Germans at Verdun. The Battle of Verdun ends a few days later with a French offensive. This is the end of the third year of war.
Postmark Tipperary, 6th November 1916. Addressed to Mrs. John Adams, Lissadine, Whitecross, County Armagh. The postcard shows Cromwell's fort, Rathfarnham, County Dublin. A man stands looking at a low crenellated wall enclosing a sturdy stone building behind. The photograph is taken from the road, and behind stands a wooded area blessed with Scots pines.
Dear Mother, just a card hoping it finds you all at home in good health as it leaves myself in the same at present. The weather was very wet, but we need expect nothing but winter now. This is all now, but I will write soon again. Your loving son, J. Adams.
Sunday, 17th December 1916. Royal Irish Fusiliers, No. 1 Company A Block, Irish Command Depot, Tipperary.
Dear Mother, just a few lines hoping they find yourself and all at home enjoying good health as it leaves myself the same at present. The weather has got very frosty in the last while, but I hope it may continue as it was very pleasant and is much better than the rain. Well, dear Mother, there is no chance of me getting home for Christmas, as the storeman is away tomorrow, Monday, for 10 days, so he will not be back until Wednesday after Christmas, so the two of us could not get away together. But I hope yous will have a good Christmas at home and yous can have a little thought for the black sheep up in the wilds of Tipperary. You might tell Jimmy to write me a few lines and let me know how the dance came off. Well, I think this is all now. I will hardly have time to write again to the end of the week. Hoping to hear from you soon. Goodbye. I remain your loving son, J. Adams.
Thank you for listening to John Adams' Letters from the Front podcast. To find out more about John Adams and his family, visit www.johnadams.org.uk/letters. The history of the 9th Service Battalion, Royal Irish Fusiliers, during the World War I is taken from the Blackers Boys. Visit them at www.9irishfusiliers.co.uk with the number 9. The podcast will be published 100 years after the letters were written, so will be published nearly every month. This has been a Mark Smith production.